It's Good Morning Nigeria live on NTA's network service and from our headquarters studios in Abuja. Our first conversation today is on the destruction of assets used in stealing crude oil and the impact thereof on the environment. Let's listen to this background put together by our correspondent, Dr. Alabi.
According to the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NTA, Nigeria lost more than 619.7 million barrels of crude oil to theft between 2009 and 2020. This translates to a total value of $46.16 billion. The average daily loss during this period was approximately 140,000 barrels, valued at $10.7 million. Meanwhile, there were 148 crude oil theft incidents documented according to the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPCL) between September 2 and 8, 2023. These incidents included the discovery of 78 illegal refineries, 14 automatic identification system AIS infractions involving vessels, 8 instances of illegal connections, 34 arrests related to wooden boats, 8 vehicle-related arrests, the detection of 4 oil spills, 1 vessel arrest, as well as incidents of pipeline vandalism. After recording 148 crude oil theft incidents in 6 days, on July 11, 2023, NNPC Limited intercepted an 800,000-liter vessel carrying stolen crude offshore while heading to Cameroon, which was destroyed as a deterrent to oil thieves. The recurring decimal of theft of Nigeria's crude oil and the inability of authorities to put a stop to it is certainly worrisome. In an effort to deal with the situation, oil theft assets, including vessels, have in recent times been destroyed along with its content, thus presenting another loss to the country and impacting the environment negatively. Analysts have criticized the destruction of the vessel and some assets apprehended for suspected oil theft, which they say amounts to destruction of evidence that could be possibly used for prosecuting culprits. For advocates of environmental protection, the concept of burning illegal refineries, stolen crude, and the vessels bearing such items is unhealthy, beside the fact that it does not serve as the right antidote to oil theft. Environmentalists have raised the question of the avoidable environmental impact the burning of crude constitutes at a time when the whole world is in a race to reduce carbon emission. More fundamentally, it does not make economic sense to destroy such costly crude and its assets at a time the country seriously needs funds. Observers say an oil-producing country like Nigeria has no excuse being unable to monitor its oil and gas assets and production facilities using technology and community engagement. How can Nigeria better deal with the menace of oil theft without further harming the environment and putting the lives of the inhabitants in danger? What are the best global practices? How do communities come in to assist the government tackle oil theft? These, among other pertinent issues, are what our guests will be addressing on this edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
And to discuss the topic today, first we have Idris Olubola Musa, Director General, National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency, NOSTRA. So you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Here with us as well is Professor John Osonwa. Professor Osonwa is a climate change and environmental expert. He's also a consultant to the UN and National Assembly. We're glad to have you this morning with us, Prof.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
And joining us via Zoom from the United States is architect Nemo Bassi, Executive Director, Health of Mother Earth Foundation. Architect Nemo Bassi, we're glad to have you join us on the program this morning.
Thank you very much, and good morning.
Okay, we know it's still small hours there, so we appreciate the fact that we have disturbed your sleep. And but this is a very significant topic, an issue that you are also very concerned about. In times past, the chief concern had to do with the pollution arising from oil exploration and production activities, as well as accidents in the process, and sometimes also the sabotage of oil facilities. But our focus this morning has to do with the attempts by the security agencies to stamp out crude oil theft, which has become quite rife in the oil-producing regions of the country. And I'm sure you saw some of the footage in the course of the background report. How worrisome in terms of the pollution consequences are the activities of the security agencies in putting out of business the criminal elements responsible for stealing crude oil?
Thank you very much. It's indeed a very disturbing incident to keep seeing the level of environmental pollution related to people tampering with oil facilities, and then to compound this, the military, the security forces, and their agents blowing up either shooting ships loaded with crude oil or setting boats and the illegal refineries on fire. The pollution is enormous. It can hardly be quantified. We have to just look at the amount of pollution that happened in Ogoniland before the rise of this artisanal refining, and then look at what is going on in Bayelsa State. The recent report by the Bayelsa Oil and Environment Commission showed that there is a per capita pollution of 1.5 barrels on everyone living in Bayelsa State. That is mind-boggling. And then beyond what we read in the Ogoni report, the UNEP report on Ogoniland, we are also seeing in this new report that we have hydrocarbon pollution, total hydrocarbon pollution up to 1 million times above safe limits. And then you have some chemical elements like cadmium or chromium about several times above safe limits. This is very disturbing because we believe that, one, stealing oil theft is bad, and those doing it should be brought to book. But to compound the problem for an already polluted environment by exposing our people to such danger through environmental pollution is clearly unacceptable. It's not only affecting humans, it's affecting the biodiversity, the aquatic ecosystem, it's affecting livelihoods, and it's something that can be done in a different way. Those installations are not complex refineries. They can be dismantled. And if a boat is caught with illegal crude, can be taken to somewhere else where it can be handled safely. We are not seeing this happening.
So let's remain with you now that we have a clear signal from New York. Now, there are two things here. One is oil stealing or stealing of crude oil. Another is illegal refining of the oil stealing, which of course brings about the environmental destruction that we are talking about this morning. And considering the fact that the agencies concerned in terms of curbing or mitigating have devised a means of doing that, which does not augur well for the environment. That is total outright destruction of the facilities, some of which contain crude oil themselves. And again, when they are destroyed, it's spilling all over the place. Of course, the damage is very clear from the reports that we showed before we started this conversation. Now, what would be the right approach to the situation at the moment? Because presently, the refining business is still ongoing, despite the fact that there are serious efforts by the government to stop it. Now, I believe you come from that environment as well. What will be the overall approach to this, considering the fact that already we are in a very dicey situation, considering the destruction of the environment so far in that environment?
Well, no matter how dire the economic situation is, and in fact, you are right, well, we all know that the amount of losses in the oil sector is enormous. But this is just one aspect of oil theft. And and illegal events in the oil fields of the Niger Delta. Clearly, the security forces need to consider their own environmental responsibilities. They should be worried that one drop of oil is allowed to enter the environment. And we need to remind ourselves that a drop of oil will contaminate 25 liters of water, potable water, making it unfit for human consumption. And so no matter what, I think the blow-ups is actually to display to the public that, look, we're working very hard, we're doing things. But of course, we need to support the security forces, but there are better ways. There are better ways to do what they're doing. They should just comprehend, arrest the boats that are illegal, take them away. And if it's a refining location, they should be able to dismantle them, cordon the areas. We've seen recently in other countries where boats, a ship that was suspected that could possibly leak oil into the water, received a lot of attention. A lot of experts were gathered around. They secured that ship and ensured that the oil was transferred and taken away and wasn't allowed to leak into the environment. But in Nigeria, we're seeing absolute impunity. What the security forces are doing is something they ought not to do, and they should also be held to account for exposing our people to such terrible harms.
Well, Architect Numo Bassey, thanks. In the meantime, we're going to pause you and return to you in the course of the conversation. Back to the studios here, Professor John Osonwa. What's your view about what is happening? Yes, the law enforcement authorities, they have a task, they have a duty to perform. Then this is what we are saying. And some would say that perhaps, it's a milder version, but still with pollution consequences, what we used to see with the customs or standards organization or NAFDAC. You apprehend contraband, and then you make a bonfire, say of tires, for instance, in the open. So, but in the case of the pollution that we are seeing, creeks and rivers and other water bodies containing this oil slick, what's your reading of it?
Well, my take is not very different from what we've heard. Clearly, we have a problem with oil theft in Nigeria. We've seen the facts and the figures, very mind-boggling. 40 billion naira being lost each day due to, and this is from NNPC figures, every day due to crude oil theft. However, the issue at hand is how do we begin to arrest the situation? I don't think that the dramatic and damaging methodology we're seeing is the best approach. Now, we need to have a holistic and sincere interrogation of the whole system. Let me begin with this. You have a battalion of military personnel in this region, ostensibly to police, to checkmate illegal refining, crude oil theft, bunkering, and all this stuff. In addition to the battalion, you have a plethora of security operatives, including private security companies that are being paid 50 billion every year, 50 billion every year to private security operatives in the region to checkmate oil theft. And yet, we see this massive outflow of crude oil that is meant for all of us. So that's where the holistic approach needs to begin. In addition to what we are seeing in terms of manpower deployment in the region, you also have maritime surveillance technology. The Navy has what they call the Falcon Eye. NIMASA has C4I or something like that, MPSC I3. All these things designed to checkmate the problem. Now, you also look at the extant laws. As a professor of law, we look at what the law says with regard to conduct. With reference here, you have the Armed Forces Act, which says that an officer who willfully and maliciously destroys property, public property, a vessel, ship, aircraft, is, if convicted in a court martial, is guilty of arson and is subject to life imprisonment. That's Section 111 of the Armed Forces Act, which is applicable here. So,
but that's the mens rea there is willful.
Willful and malicious.
And malicious. But this is the cause. This is a hot pursuit.
Well, is it always hot pursuit? That's the question.
That's the presumption.
That's the question we have to ask. But then there's also another provision, Hydrocarbons Oil Refining Act, Section 15, says that if you have reasonable suspicion as an officer that there is illegal refining going on, you may enter, even with force, I agree. But to dismantle or seize, the law doesn't say to destroy or blow up. And in legal coinage, we're always very careful. We've seen the choice of language. They didn't say destroy, they didn't say incinerate. So what I'm saying is there are clear legal parameters to conduct that should avert the catastrophic destruction we're seeing, is contributing to the release of carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, a lot of greenhouse gases, in addition to the damage we're seeing to the ecosystem. So I think we need a holistic approach to deal with this problem.
Okay, as we make progress, perhaps you will let us know some of these approaches that you are preferring to deal with the menace that you're already seeing in the area. And let's bring in Idris Olubola Musa here, who is the Director General of the National Oil Spills Detection and Response Agency, NOTRA. Yours is about oil spills, but the spilling now has gone to a different dimension. You don't need to search again to see where oil is being spilled. It is all over the place. And of course, you've listened to other guests on this program, and I'm sure that you will have a better response in terms of being on ground. But these are primarily your area. When the oil spill is detected, you have an answer to that, or an action to take to that. So what is it for you in the entire scenario that we've seen ourselves now as far as the Niger Delta region is concerned?
Well, thank you very much for bringing me here today. It's an opportunity again to let Nigerians know what is being done to make sure that we have a cleaner and better environment. I've listened to two other colleagues on this program spoken, and I can see at the end of this discourse, we may be having a three-pronged solution from three different sources. One, yes, I'm an environmental scientist, and he is an architect, for instance, the first speaker. I'm a registered urban regional planner, and he's a professor of law. Good. So what we may be having here, the approaches may be one from the academia, as he is, the other one from an NGO, environmental NGO, and of course from my own side, as from the regulatory point of view. You see, the two speakers spoke as if there is a moderate, illegal entity, business entity that people just go to destroy. I think we should be able to separate what is right, what is wrong, what is legal, what is illegal. When we say crude oil theft, it goes to say that is an illegal activity. We cannot say, for instance, somebody has gone to the market to steal a bag of rice or a loaf of bread and say, oh, it's because he's hungry. That's why he's going to steal. He has committed an act, illegal act. You see, when we look at this oil theft, like I already said, oil spill ordinarily in the civilized climate is supposed to be an accidental event. It's never meant to be a willful thing. Maybe in the course of maintenance, there could be human error. Maybe in the course of maintenance also, there could be some weak points in the oil facilities. Then there could be a spill. We say accidental. Then there is a rapid response to that. But in a situation where every day, you can see the report, here the two speakers have put numbers to it. Every day, this is how much $1 billion that is lost. How? We must find out how. So what we see the security agencies do is, like the Prof of Law said, is dismantling. Dismantling can now be recategorized. But again, a situation has been done already. The environment has been messed up already. I've been to the field several times. I can tell you so many spots. As a matter of fact, based on the current statistics that we have, in terms of location, we have about 520 illegal refining sites. 520, not just a guesswork, documented, geo-referenced, and mapped. I have the map, I can show you. So, and what happens from this? What the military did was maybe what we can call a wicked problem. A wicked problem is a problem where, providing a solution to that problem, the solution you provide is also a problem in itself. And it goes on in a vicious cycle. However, we have looked at this and said there are many ways to catch a rat. If you cannot stop illegal refinery, and if you cannot stop breaking, let us look at alternative. We'll be discussing that later, what we thought could really put all these things to check. But if you have opportunity of going on air, I mean going up by way of a chopper or using drone to check the mangrove forest in the Niger Delta, you'll be very amazed with what is there. A lot of the lush mangrove forests are now deserts on its own. And what you see down there is a mess of environment, fragile environment for that matter, the swarm. Very, very difficult to assess and to clean. In the world, the most difficult oil spill cleanup process is the one in the mangrove. How do you go with all the props? And then we have myriads of this in the Niger Delta. Even in Bodo, for instance, in Ogoni, where a cleanup is going on, what we have there is a situation where the little part that have been cleaned up is now being revegetated with mangrove seedlings, so that over time, within a period of time, we can have the mangroves back. But artisanal refining has not stopped. We have to put a stop to it. But like I said, there are many ways of putting an end to it.
No, but thank you very much, DG of Nostra. But when you see those visuals one more time and what you said, the ecosystem is virtually gone in the locations where these things are occurring. And the law enforcement agents, they have a duty to perform. They have a task to perform, to put these illegal refiners out of business. So what therefore can be done to ensure that, yes, you enforce the law, but you don't create an additional problem for the ecosystem? Because when you see, there are human beings who are living there. There's no way you can have any aquatic life. What would be your source of water? Potable water, for instance, in that kind of environment. Where will you get your fish from? And so on and so forth. What, in your view, therefore, will be the alternative ways, around this, while putting out of commission those criminal elements in the creeks?
Well, like I said, I gave you statistics of those sites that have been geo-referenced, mapped out. What we need to do is to clean up the place first, but it will take several billions of naira to do the cleanup. Based on what you have seen there, you clean up first, and not only clean up the swamp area that has been impacted, even the creeks and the creeklets. A number of them, you can't see just one bubble, a bubble. When you see a bubble from the creeklet or from the creek, that means there's a living thing there. But you can't see, sort of like Dead Sea. You have seen several clips of this thing being shown, a situation where somebody already stole crude oil, he burns it, and the next thing he does is to dump the residue inside the creek. And the same people drink from the same source. So what we need to do is to put a stop to this, like I said, begin the cleanup and ensure that the people who engage in this artisanal refining do not come back to that. And that's why I said, some time back, under the leadership of Senator Itainan, who was Senior Special Assistant to the President, former President on Nigerian Affairs, we tried to put up some efforts at dissuading these people. Let me tell you, they don't even call themselves illegal refiners. They call themselves domestic refiners, domestic refining owners Association of Nigeria. The caliber you see there are not refracts. Graduates of petroleum engineering, chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, name it. They were here in Abuja. We had interface with them. In fact, there was a summit in Sheraton Hotel, Ladi Kwali Hall, where the former vice president was a guest to address them. And there and then we decided that, look, if we have been using a method to stop these people before, how many people do you see usually arrested? Few. Those are not the people. The people who can do this have never been arrested. Or it's the refracts that they just put on television and say these are the people. Those are not the people. Yes, and these people who have said, okay, let us find the means. Do what we call modular refining. The modular refining we are talking about is not the type that you see being licensed now. There are people in Nigeria. We have institutions of government. We have Naseni, we have ABU Zaria, we have FUPRI in Warri, we have Proda. All these people can be brought together. We agreed they will bring prototype. Refinery that these people can be used, and you put them in cooperatives.
Really, you have raised a number of issues, which I'm not sure.
And these are the people, these are the people who ordinarily will be the one to checkmate all the refracts that are in that business. So when you see the people policing themselves, it makes more sense and more security implementation than having to run against those you don't know.
You don't know. So really, the event you mentioned at Sheraton, I was privileged to be there. I actually mastered that ceremony and engaged some of the young men you are talking about. Like you said, they're not refracts. The young men that came are young graduates. And one of them, who actually is I think the assistant secretary also, told me that, sir, as we speak on that occasion, that they are loading in the high sea refined diesel. They presented three, should I say, categories of diesel. They presented different colors, depicting different qualities of what they have in stock. So they're not just refining. I'm not sure that what I'm seeing on screen, with respect to the spillage we saw, is what those people have. There are people who have more sophisticated, arrangement for that. Even the University of Technology in Bayelsa, the vice chancellor of that school, was on that occasion, and he said that they have a mini refining machine in his school.
ABU has.
Yeah, so now, who is harnessing them? Nobody is. So, I mean, maybe on another day we'll talk about the reasons for the emergence of these young men who are refining. We lack fuel in the country. Fuel is, of course, it's been imported, as we all know. And the Thailand you mentioned talked about bringing those young men in and formalizing them, license them, watch what they're doing, and make them part of the business. That was what he was going for, but nobody listened. Now we're talking about environmental degradation that I think is bringing about another. And these are people you may not be able to track. You said it that the real men are not there. The people they catch in that environment are not the real men that own the place.
Yes,
so
that's right.
On that note, I'd like to bring in again our guest in New York. I hope you see there with us, architect Nemo Bassi. Yeah, can you come in on this aspect of the conversation with respect to what can be done? Is it necessary to formalize the activities of those young men to see how they can come into the mix of oil production in Nigeria?
Well, I must apologize. I'm at a hotel lobby right now. There's a lot of noise here. So make it difficult for me to even hear the question. But I've heard the response from the North Royal boss, and I do appreciate that they're facing a very serious problem because you're trying to detect oil spill and it's happening all around you. But I think the issue on the ground is how who is compounding the problem?
Sorry, Nimo Bassi, it looks like there is a freeze there in your connection. We'll return to you if the network is good. Back to the studios, Professor John or someone. Nimo, are you back? All right, so we understand you're not back still, but back to the conversation. Look, the longer term solution will be get rid of these illegal refiners, however they define themselves, whether they are domestic or what they are doing is illegal. Yes. What is the source of their crude? They don't explore for oil. That is, you steal another person's crude and then you are refining. I mean, that's a clear case of theft or stealing as it goes. But what we are saying is that Demo Bassi or yourself will say, look, if you drop a liter, for instance, of crude, or let's say a barrel, since you mentioned the barrels, you drop a barrel of crude in the waters, you know how far the ripples will go. No question about that. And we have seen, sometimes, with Nigerians who will say, oh, international best practices. International best practices, you see, for instance, a stricken tanker on the high seas, and it's like the whole world is galvanized to be sure that the spill is contained, the extent of the spill is contained. People are mobilized to the beaches to do cleanup, but it looks like in this case, vessels are being destroyed. I mean, when you see the visuals, you ask yourself, how can human beings, survive in this ecosystem? So, what, from your point of view, should be the environmental responsibility for what we are seeing now? Because there is an existential threat to the ecosystem on account of law enforcement.
I agree. As I said, we need a holistic review of what is going on. The first one is we need to have training of the people who are out there trying to intercept, to arrest, to dismantle, destroy, whatever they are doing. There needs to be some kind of environmental training in the proper methodology to use to deal with the situation. I don't know whether that is happening, but it's not sinking in, or we're not doing enough. Those who are at the forefront of policing our coastal waters, checkmating illegal refining, need to be trained properly. And the good news is we have, as DG stated, we have a lot of institutions with a lot of expertise in this area. We also have a lot of agencies that can help. So there needs to be that synergy, there needs to be that interface between those at the forefront of checkmating the menace and those who are at the institutional level to see that what they are doing is correct. That's one issue. Second issue that we need to look at, the judicial system is also implicated in this. We have heard stories, and by reference, by deductive reasoning, we also see it happening in other arenas, where if you arrest someone and you bring them through the judicial system, it can take 10 years for the matter to be resolved. Let's say you've impounded a vessel and it's being immobilized somewhere, and now you have a case that lingers for 5-10 years. During that time, that vessel will begin to leak whatever you have impounded into the water. So there needs to be expeditious judicial adjudication, and perhaps a special court. In some, if we can do traffic court for traffic offenses, this is a serious menace. So perhaps we should set up a special court for these kinds of situations where things will move swiftly. We impound the crude. We now repurpose it for public use. I don't think it should be burned. That's a lot of money. This one that was burned, the 800,000 liters, that was about $86 million that went up in flames. Imagine what that can do for the infrastructure.
I was just wondering, Professor John Osonwa, we understand that Nimbu Bassi is back to us. Well, I mean, that's a legal dimension to it. If it is stolen crude, somebody owns the crude, and now you incinerate it, well, that's double loss, as it were. I mean, the original owner loses, and then the government, which ordinarily is supposed to benefit from it, loses. But much more seriously is the environmental impact. Professor Osonwa here has provided some recommendations, improved or better environmental training for persons who are involved in the current security operations around that location. He's also talked about ramping up the judicial system to have special prosecution and speedy prosecution as well for persons who are involved so that the dangers are not compounded. What would you say, Edimo Bassey, with respect again to environmental responsibility on this existential issue of the damage to the ecosystem as a result of law enforcement operations?
Thank you. I believe that one of the things that needs to be done is for responsible agencies of government, those in the Ministry of Environment, North Right itself, the Health Ministry of Health, to have a round table with the military. Maybe they've been doing this in the background, but this needs to be escalated. We have to have a security force that understands that environmental security is very important. Now, the kind of pollution going on, if not checked, would render that region, many parts of the Nigeria are uninhabitable. And that cannot, no matter how much illegal refining or oil theft is stopped, if you don't rescue the environment, it's clearly something that is like shooting one's foot or cutting one's nose to spite the face or whatever you may call it. So we need to really, the military must understand the environmental health issues, and they need to sit down and talk about it. Because if the people their right to life is truncated by blowing up illegal refineries, setting boats on fire, and people recording them and making a show of them on TV, I think it's a bad day for the country. We have to have a clear understanding that if the environment is unsafe, then our right to life is directly challenged. It's not only about money. We need to invest in the cleanup. We need to invest in proper policing with understanding. Have dialogues with the communities, with the people involved. I heard you mention about, the artisanal associations. If people get to the point of having that kind of association, it shows that something seriously has broken in our system. And we should be worried about that.
Yes, indeed, worried about that. I should call it a gallant association for that matter, because they are well spread in that area. And of course, their tentacles are well spread. And of course, from what you've told us, Idris Lubola Musa, I would like you to round off now. Professor Songma talked about plethora of security operatives in the area. He talked about tuning as well. Now, who are those operating in that environment, and how well trained and mannered are there? Because sometimes you give instructions, people go and do the opposite. Definitely, in terms of destruction of those stuff, they are not the remedy, because it's adding to the already bad situation.
Thank you very much again. The destruction of those arsenal refining sites is not an end remedy in itself. There are still some things that need to be done. For instance, noting the negative impact of such destruction on the environment earlier on, working with the Nigerian Navy, there has been what we call harmonized standard operating procedure, which comprises the agency, NOSDRA, the Nigerian Navy itself, and some other agencies of government, Federal Ministry of Health. There was NEOMA, and there was Department of Fisheries. We had meetings several times and drew out what we call harmonized standard operating procedure. In other words, if you are going to embark on dislocating these people, these are the ways you need to go. So that is one. And based on that, a number of arrests were made and not destroyed, but handed over to the responsible prosecuting agencies. But then, how long does it take to get the result?
Are you addressing the issue of connivance with some security operatives? No,
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But
I'm saying, are you addressing that issue, because it has come up over time?
Yes. The issue of connivance is as a result of a thriving business. If you remove that business, connivance will definitely be out. Just like Prof said, if those who are arrested are now prosecuted early and then we get results, that will be one. Secondly, we have said, if you try a method to stop a problem and it's not stopping, then look for alternatives. That's why I said there is a need to look at these people. We suggested at that time that let's have 3 modular refineries by the oil producing state. In other words, we have about 27.
So one time leader in this country said,
yes,
I'm not stopping you, that whenever there is a thriving business of the one we're talking about, and
yes,
it is not stopping,
yes,
then there are some elements in positions of authority whose hands are in it. And that is why I don't know whether that's applied here. You
cannot rule that out. It may apply. I won't say it applies. I will say it may apply. Otherwise, when we provided profile solutions, why is the solution not taken? For instance, building, this issue I mentioned to you, if we started at that time, if those who should give not to it, gave not to it, this is about 18 months ago.
Well,
some of those things would have been.
Thank you very
in the
much.
past.
I'm sorry to interject. We
Yes.
have a second topic, but this is an issue that we'll have to return to at some point. I was glad you were mentioning the replanting of the mangrove in Ogoni land. Ogoni cleanup has been on. We don't have an update as to what has happened, but to tell you how challenging it is with respect to Ogoni, it took UNEP to instigate that. So what would then happen to several other communities in the oil-producing parts of the country where you have this oil spill, either accidental, but now arising from the destruction of stolen crude along with the assets. It's a very big issue that, of course, impacts everybody. So we'll return to this subject matter at some future point. We have a second topic, but we'd like to thank our guests who have been with us this morning. Professor John Osonwa, climate change and environmental expert, thank you very much for your insights. We also would like to appreciate Architect Nibo Basi, Executive Director, Health of Mother Earth Foundation. He joined us via Zoom from New York. Nibo, always a delight having you, but sorry for the glitch that we had a moment ago. Well, we hope you're able to catch some rest until you get on with your activities later this morning. Architect Nibo Basi, we appreciate you. Here in the studios, Idris Musa, Director General of NOSTRA, that's the National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency. Thank you very much also for being our guest.
Thank you very much.
It's Good Morning Nigeria live on NTA's network service. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with our conversation, this time on a second topic.